Conversations on Co-Production is Expert Link's free monthly meeting where people come along to chat all things co-production with like-minded individuals. These podcast episodes are taken directly from the conversations. So if you like what you hear, come along and join us by signing up via the link below.
I think it helps to motivate people to keep going. Because I think, if someone says, oh, that was a good point, then I think, oh, yeah, and that makes me feel better about myself and makes me feel more inclined to contribute next time. So I think positive feedback certainly is good for that.
It's about people coming back next time. And if we can genuinely show them that the views that they have expressed or the experiences that they have shared have been used and something has been done, then they're going to come back because they feel valued and worthwhile, and they are valued. They're really worthwhile. We couldn't do what we do without them.
I'm a service user. I've been using the service since I was a young child, and so I'm finding myself, I guess, in a lot of important meetings, and I've been doing a lot of really good work with people participation, being on like steering groups and boards with senior management. But this is quite an issue that I'm having, because I'm finding that from one section I'm able to give a lot of expertise and information and support and guidance on how to change things, but then on the other side I'm still not really able to in real practice change any of the issues that are going on with me or any of the issues that are going on in my community. I'm in all the right places, but I feel like I'm not moving forward in any way.
One thing that I learned from my old management working in mental health, and I carried this with me, and I'm sure I'll carry it for the rest of my life, is it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And I think that makes a really big difference when you're providing feedback to others, or you're getting feedback from somebody else. I think once you kind of implement that perspective, it's a lot easier to take out the emotional bits out of it and kind of see it as, okay, like this is what I'm really good at, and this is just an area of improvement that I could work on. And I think when giving feedback, it's really important to highlight the important bits and not look at the constructive criticism as like a bad thing. It's just an area that you can kind of expand on. And I think it's the way you kind of word it and deliver that to somebody, because not everybody is open to feedback. So I think it's your delivery is quite important, and your choice of words.
I always think feedback should be offered, and that puts a person on the other end in a position whether they want to or they're able to accept it or not. I also think feedback should be a two-way street. So as well as being prepared to offer feedback, we should be prepared to receive feedback as well. Then the first O is for ownership. So when and somebody's already mentioned this, that it has to be quite specific, and we're not talking general things, or we're talking about what somebody else has said, but it's something we've experienced, something we've witnessed, that we can really speak truth to power about. And the other one is objective. And it's difficult sometimes to separate subjective and objective, but when we're being objective, it's based on actual facts rather than interpretations of facts. And for me, I've always found that a clear way of differentiating when something is objective rather than subjective. And then the S stands for Pacific. So this has already been mentioned. Saying to people that was really good sounds lovely, but they don't actually know what bit of that was really good. They don't know what behavior they need to repeat or stop or whatever. And then about it being timely. So sometimes giving feedback immediately after an event is not the best time. So it's like finding an appropriate time, not too long, not too short, of when to offer that feedback.
I know that feedback in itself is really important and useful as a service user. But I'm just curious as to how we get the feedback or the information or the advice and turn it into real action, real change, and also how you get it to reach senior management as well.
I give an example, and this is very recent. This happened yesterday. I was running a workshop on how to use digital tools, both online and offline, to aid co-production. And one of the themes that was coming up was that, especially people working in large institutions, so county councils, local councils, NHS, that sort of thing, they were saying that they're not sure why, but they get blocked from using a lot of stuff. So either the service would only use Microsoft or it would only use Google. People saying they weren't allowed to use things like Flinger or these other things. And they were saying it came up in the group and we had quite a talk. And I said to people, okay, so how can we ask that question? How can we feed this back? So I asked people to email me. And what I did in my report back to the commissioners, I anonymized the organizations and the names and just put it back as quotes. This has literally only happened yesterday and today, so I don't know how they've taken it on, but that's one way of feeding that feedback back to people who are in positions of power and who are asking for one thing, but also seem to be blocking as well.
Yeah, I was going to say anonymized quotes are the best thing because they are an actual voice and they always come across so much more powerful than anything I can say when I try and summarize what's happening. But I think it may be not a positive but I think the important thing is you have to have a structure for giving the feedback. Otherwise it just goes as far as the workers who are sympathetic and open to listening, and they may be able to pass it up one level to their manager who may or may not listen to it. But if you want to get to the very top, you have to have an organizational commitment to doing that, to receiving feedback. And there are lots of ways organizations should be looking at feedback. So they should be analyzing their complaints. They should be doing like a satisfaction survey or something like that, or some kind of exit survey, or some kind of formal method of getting feedback. And there should also be some way of capturing the voice of lived experience in other more informal ways, or whether, whatever they have. But it needs to be explicitly said that this is going to go to the top level, to the senior management and to the board. Otherwise, if it's not explicitly stated, in my experience, it just goes as far as the people who are already, like you're preaching to the converted. So I think that was a brilliant question, but I don't know that I have an answer.
Getting the feedback is really only half the job. You also have to kind of know, I guess, a generic term for it would be your business or your area. You already, let's say you're trying to co-produce a service, you have to kind of know what service you've got going on right now. You have to quite an intimate knowledge of it and good relationships with the people who are delivering it. So when you can go to them and say, well, this is what the clients have said, we use the term clients, or service users have said, then you can open up a conversation. But you have to value both your internal audiences as much as your external, I think.
So kind of a simplified way I look at feedback is that it's communication of what's been achieved or not achieved, and then how you relay that to the audience depends on who that audience is and how it will be meaningful for them. So that can take into account how accessible the information is, the formats, how relatable it is to that particular person or group of people, and what would be the purpose of feeding that back. So whether that's for a learning example, learning from complaints or negative feedback and how that can be taken forward, whether you're collecting evidence to then make a change or put forward a case for something different. So I think it's kind of looking at it from all of those different angles, like who the audience is, what the purpose for the feedback is, and the best method or way of communicating that and sharing it. that thought of like opportunity to provide feedback, so not just you know, creating that safe space, but also thinking beyond that as to like what would be the best format for people to be able to communicate their experiences. So for a lot of people, just having a form might be a barrier in itself, and it's not that they don't want to provide feedback, it's that the format isn't that accessible or user friendly. So things like focus groups and discussion forums, or speaking to somebody individually in person or over the telephone, but asking people rather than assuming what would work, and maybe having a variety as well, so that you can capture different people with different preferences that can all feed into answering the same questions. But thinking about the questions as well, not having it too fixed or led or directed, so that you can capture some of the like unexpected feedback, maybe, so that it's really open to just getting all of the rich information to move forward. So thinking about the qualitative kind of feedback and comments people might provide, as well as quantitative things. When most people think of an evaluation, they think of a form and often lots of questions or lots of boxes or surveys, but yeah, a lot of people just think, oh, a long form, I haven't got time for that, or I don't want to do that, whereas a conversation might be easier but still get across a lot of that information. But yeah, thinking about the experience of the people that are providing that feedback being really important.
Well, that's really important, is once you do find that there are individuals that you can speak to who are willing and really want to change things in society, when you start to develop a kind of more long-term relationship with them, that is also incredibly useful. Particularly, say, if somebody within the group has been quite quiet or maybe nervous and isn't as confident speaking, and then if you can kind of see almost how their own self develops, how their confidence increases, how they're able to kind of speak up and be more open about how they're feeling. These things, again, relating to the relationship and the development of an individual, it leads to more supportive feedback, it leads to more informative relationships, it leads to more vital evidence and feedback for senior management as well, because ideally what they want is they want solid research or evidence to show and to justify why they should change the funding, why this should be increased. So by having these kind of relationships that you almost develop over time with somebody, that kind of relationship really helps in the long term when it comes to feedback.